Welcome to the Based Boomer Podcast on Eschatology Matters, part of the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network. Since I'm new to this whole podcast thing, I'm deciding I'm going to do some interviews, and we're going to do the first one today. I figure you're getting tired of me, so let's bring some other folks into this. Now, given that the inspiration for my podcast was my red pill experience, I'm going to focus on other people's red pill experiences. They don't have to be boomers, although the first interview is with a fellow boomer and one who happens to be my cousin, as I'll explain in a moment. I believe, as I write in my latest book, Going Back to Find the Way Forward, that we are in a period of history in which God is revealing amazing things about creation and himself as Lord and Redeemer of it all. We know this as the gospel, but it applies to everything in life because truth, and he who is the truth, applies to everything. My favorite C.S. Lewis quote says it perfectly. I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun has risen, not because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. I believe when Donald Trump came down the escalator in June 2015, God started using him to begin a process of great awakening for millions, in fact, tens of millions of people. And it wasn't exactly Trump, though, but the reaction to him that has caused everything. He was such a threat to the left and the uniparty elite that they did everything in their power to stop him, including a fake pandemic. I call COVID the red pill neutron bomb of truth. And as Morpheus said to Neo in The Matrix, when you take it, you stay in Wonderland and go down the rabbit hole to see how deep it goes. The specific rabbit hole we're going to be going down today is related to health. COVID was that red pill for me and millions of others that started us questioning everything about, quote, experts, so-called, and the medical industrial complex. But my guest ingested his health red pill more than 2 decades ago. His name is Dr. Greg Brannon, and he also happens to be my cousin, as I mentioned, and he was the one who guided me through the COVID minefield to truth. I'll never forget the day in March 2020 when he told me, COVID is a scam. And I replied, really? That began my education in God's astounding creation that he made us to be healthy. And Greg directed me through my early days of my health journey. Welcome, cousin.
Hey, cousin. Love you. Thank you.
Yeah, I love you too. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Yep.
So since you're new to my audience, let's start by explaining how you grew up, why you wanted to be a doctor. And by the way, Greg is my cousin on my dad's side. His mother is my dad's sister. And you grew up from when we were incredibly young wanting to be a doctor, and also how over time you came to Christ.
Wow, let's start. I was, obviously you and I were very tight growing up. Your dad was my mom's bigger brother. Christmas every year, holidays every year was what we did. I don't know. I always wanted to go to USC and be a doctor. I don't know where it came from. I think back, maybe our other uncle Joe, his wife married Wendy, and Aunt Wendy's dad was a doctor and went to USC. So maybe that's where it came into playing.
Oh, okay.
But I always loved science. I loved math, and I enjoyed people. And my mom might have been a little crazy, but you know that. But she said she really had these 3 rules in our house: go to church, go to school, or kick your butt. And she meant it. Right. And she had me when she was about 18, 20 years of age, somewhere in there. I'm not exactly sure. The story changes all the time. And then 4 years later, she had by another man, my younger brother, who by all, like I'll say, worldly things, my mom was a huge success in the sense that one son became a surgeon and one son became a lawyer. But the most important thing in my life is my brother got saved before I did, actually from your influence, which led me down a path of truth. And a lot of things I did as a early lifetime of my life was ego, pride. I'll do my best. I'll be better. And when you realize that it has nothing to do with it, effort is there. Yes, I got it. Right. But his plan is a whole lot better than my plan.
Well, tell me, because I don't really remember, I sort of do, about something about Mexico and a Bible and how Christ got
so my goal, my whole life was go to USC undergrad, USC med school, USC residency. I did 2 of those, not 3 of those. And the third one was my first 2 years. I did not get into medical school my first time around. So I went down to school in Mexico. And it's not the best way to come back, but it worked out great. But at that journey, of my journey down my faith, my brother got baptized at a Calvary Chapel in Downey, California, came home, told me, Greg, stop working. There's no need to work anymore. As you know, you and I were raised in a religious where you had to work hard. We were raised Catholics. And that's the same time you were obviously with Navigators, working hard with that. And you and Anthony were very tight. And you gave me my first Bible when I went to school.
I just don't remember that. So amazing.
I have it right here in my study.
Really?
And you wrote me a little note to it and you gave it to me.
Wow.
And that gave me a journey because about, I'll say a year or 2 before that was the time I had a conflict with a priest and he had no answers. And I wanted to go down the path. And I thought as a in science or study, I read everything. I read a lot. But, I knew it was in the Bible, even though I never read it, right? I knew it was in the Bible, but I never read it. And when you start reading it, it's like, oh my goodness, what a fool I was. And the more you read it, the more simple it gets. And in the sense of Christ is king, period. That's his word, period. We can't do anything except a free gift. And that just led me down a journey of truth. I mean, as you already said at the beginning in your prologue, is that he's truth. And when you understand him and you have that through everything you do through that prism, everything becomes so much easier and works goes away. Outcomes come away. Living in the process is the most important process because the end is taken care of. And that sees you to be free when you're about COVID, so-called scientists say this or humanists say that. And you're like, well, no, I know 2 + 2 is 4. You can never waver me away from that. Once you know what 2 + 2 is, you can never, ever, ever be wavered. No amount of discussion or philosophy or argument could take you away from the facts. A right angle is 90 degrees. And as we know, God is logic. And when you have that, it's over.
So you went to medical school in Mexico for a couple of years, right?
So I went down there and I was very, very fortunate. What I did was I never knew how to study in high school and college. And
you still did very well, though.
Well, I was very fortunate. I did well in the sense of in high school, I got a full ride to USC as a dream of mine, which is great. Yeah. But again, I get into a school where I get in there, top 15 school in the country. And it's like everybody there is smart. And but more important than smart in the sense of this, Michael, is they know how to study. And I never knew it. I learned it during that time. Even my mother told me these things because when you do it, you do it, but you gotta really get into it. So bottom line, I learned by my senior year, I really learned how to study. But during my college, my administrator said, Greg, you're not gonna be a doctor. It ain't gonna happen. What do you love sports? I think a good gym teacher.
That was probably the wrong thing to tell you.
Well, she was correct because, Michael, I did not know how hard work was. I thought it was okay. When it came easy, it was okay.
Right.
So what I did was, and nobody understands in medical school, the first 2 years are 7 subjects. It doesn't matter where you go to school, it's 7 subjects. And you take that exam after your second year in med school. So what I did is the year I was out of school, I went to the library and I got those 7 books and I read them every single day for almost a year and a half. So if I had an opportunity to get to medical school, I'd be ready. So when I got into medical school down there, I didn't study per se for the subject I was doing at the time. I was studying for that exam. And I took that exam. I did well enough on it where I could transfer back to an American school.
And where did
Chicago.
you go?
I went to Chicago Medical School. And that changed everything. Because now when I got into medical school in America, it was like, I just got to read 12 hours a day. That's all I got to do. That's nothing else. And it was like, okay. So I read so much when I got to med school. I was like, oh, okay, I keep reading. And during that process, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. Then I really learned I love surgery. And but my last rotation I did in medical school in Chicago was OBGYN. And I was like, whoa, I could take care of kids. I could actually take care of life. And I love surgery. And I'm very, very fortunate. One of the top 2 or 3 programs in the world is USC for OBGYN. And I went there and I got in there.
So you went back from Chicago to SC.
Back to USC, yeah. And
wow.
That's so, but during that time I was off of school and had to go to Mexico when I got closer to Jesus. I started reading the Bible. I started seeing his plan was better than my plan. I still a sinner, messed up all the time. That's not it. But I knew the truth. It wasn't my hard work. It's part of my process. But here's the plan he has.
Right.
And even during that time, I met my wife. I mean, all my plan would have messed up my life if I followed my plan.
Where'd you meet Jody?
In medical school, what I did was my third year of medical school, I went to a rotation in New York, and we stayed with one of our cousins, actually. And when I was there with my cousins,
Madeline?
Madeline's daughter, exactly what I said with.
Okay.
And then they had a niece, Diane, was going with some friends one day, and they said, "You want to go out?" I said, "Sure." And one of the friends with her was Jody. And then we hit it off, and that 4 years later, we've been married with 7 kids.
And we went to your wedding. I remember
Exactly.
very well. Tell us a little bit about your family before we get into some more stuff.
So OB is my path. I love life. I just love it. And the miracle, I cannot see anybody who sees an ultrasound with a 6-week heartbeat, or sees fingers and toes develop, or the amount of effort and knowledge we use to study to save life, take care of a pregnant woman, to get through that time, could ever not be anything but pro-life, or believe it a creator. There are times in surgery I was doing things I can't believe what I'm doing actually leads to things healing. And the more you study biochemistry and science, and there's no doubt there's a creator.
God.
None. God, exactly. It's not even a question.
Gabrielle, who's, for those that you don't know, she's my daughter, oldest. And when she came out, when her head crowned and she came out, I said, and I was just weeping, "There's a God."
There's a God.
And I just said it out loud. It's like, how could you not?
Mike, I've delivered about 12, 13,000 babies. And every single time it's insane. So that led Jody and I was very family oriented. She's very family oriented. We were very blessed with 4 biological children, and we adopted 3 lovely girls.
And they are from where?
China. And so we have 6 girls and 1 son. We have 1 granddaughter, another one on the way.
Praise God.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so family is my thing. When Jody and I got married, we made a deal that we'll have a meal every day together. And it's been basically that way for 30, almost 40 years.
Wow.
And she'd come to the hospitals out there. I'd come home, whatever it was, because in residency, I was on call every other night for 4 years. It was a very time inclusive. And then we set my life up, and we have our practice here in North Carolina. I set it up where.
Now, you started being a doctor in California, or did you start when you moved to?
Yeah. So in 1988 is when I graduated med school in Chicago, went back to Los Angeles. I trained in pelvic surgery and OBGYN at USC from 88 to 92. Okay. We had a lovely daughter, my lovely daughter, Tyler, in 1990. And then Jody was pregnant with Peter, delivered in 92. But during that part of that 92, Jody got homesick for New York. And so we moved from Southern California back to New York. But Jody's not saved. Jody's not saved this time at all. And I am. I'm not living the best, but I am. And we moved to New York. And we both did not like it. It wasn't for us. And I had an opportunity to teach at some universities, and I got a couple job interviews here in North Carolina. And when I came down here, it was like, whoa, because all Jody wanted was a kitchen and a family room. That's all we wanted to do. That's all we wanted around to live our life. So we moved down here in April of 93. And we've been here ever since. And
that's Cary, which is outside of Charlotte.
Raleigh, outside Raleigh.
Oh, Raleigh, right. Raleigh.
Yeah, so I taught OBGYN at one of the UNC hospitals for a couple of years, and then opened my practice nights and weekends until it grew. And I retired from that about 5 years ago. Which
we'll get into.
Yeah, and then, but my passion was truly life. I just love it, and I love people who are healthy.
And
I always wanted to be my own boss. So I with my own practice, I didn't work for anybody, and I enjoyed the opportunity. If I succeed, I succeed. If I fail, I fail. Knowing his plan's in charge. And then the great thing about living here, how God works, Jody had no interest in being saved. She's a good person. She'll go to heaven, period. That was her thought. Huh. Her mother was raised Jewish. Her father was raised Catholic. And basically in New York, she was a pagan, right? Didn't really matter. She was a great-hearted person.
Right.
And how God works, we moved to Cary, we bought a house. And each side of us were 2 believers who loved Jody. And took Jody. Jody loves gardening, and they took her to a church function with gardening for women. And Jody comes home and says, "Let's go to church." I was like, "Whoa, thank you." And then she's pregnant with our 4th child, Gracie. She actually got baptized. So I always joke, Gracie got baptized twice because she got baptized in Jody's belly, and then when she decided. Wow. So that's our whole thing. So families are really. It sounds like motto, but it really is. And then politically, when you get to truth, you and I were raised in a house where we had, it's interesting. Your dad was a Democrat forever.
Well, as you know, he said, I'm a Democrat, Catholic, Italian, and I'll never change.
And never changed. And my mom, even though had no dad, my mom was always a conservative.
I know.
Like she loved Nixon. She loved Ronald Reagan. I mean, she loved Ronald. So I was like, pushed in that, I'll say pushed in that way, but it allowed me to look and read. And I got really passionate. I was very Republican, no matter what that person was. But I understand the Constitution. Back to the same with the Bible. I read the Bible, started learning more about the Bible, started reading more of those kind of writings. That led me politically. I said, I want to read more about who these people were. So I read but at that time in my life, about 4 books a week on history, Montague, Madison, Jefferson, all that stuff. And that led me down this other path of what true liberty is within a government setting. And our founders had it right. We're nowhere near it, but they had it right. And I got very involved in that. I ran for the United States Senate in North Carolina, lost by 3 or 4 points in 2014. For those who are involved in politics, I was endorsed by guys like Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, that kind of libertarian conservative mindset. But it wasn't a politician. I still deliver bases at the same time, still doing all that. But it came back, Michael, to my passion for truth. And that's why I love Genesis. I love Romans 1. I love the Creator God, because that was my job as an OB, the Creator God. I have to watch his handiwork every single day.
Wow.
And if anybody, scientists, the first and second law of thermodynamics goes against evolution in a moment. Chaos cannot become order. Order, it goes to chaos.
Indeed.
So the more we study, the more you science. And then, you read great philosophers and stuff like that. And it's like, but you start studying that, because my brother had a degree in philosophy, obviously you did,
right.
What you studied. That's great for guys like you, my brother, these apologetics. I love it. But it gets more simple. It's so simple. The Bible says he loves us. That's his word. It's who Jesus is. This determines your eternity. That's all it comes down to.
Indeed.
But doesn't mean we should not have guys like you that read and study, debate. I love it. But for an everyday guy, the man and the woman in the mirror have to know who Jesus is. They have to. Because he says in John 14:6, I'm the truth, the way, life. Nobody goes but through me. He's a liar or he's God. You have to, but do your work.
One or the other. Now, you were a by-the-book doctor, and you told me that. So I'm very interested, and you've told me this a little bit, but what was your red pill experience to open you up to the medical industrial complex?
The big one, Michael, is being able to deliver a bunch of babies. And
so we're talking time frame what?
Say time frame. We're talking about, say, mid-'80s, okay? So mid-'80s. I really woke up politically and liberty and stuff when Ron Paul ran for president in 88. Because back to Reagan. If Reagan was the guy, why did Reagan support abortion in California? If Reagan was the guy, why did the budget double under him?
Right.
If he was, that's my thing. That's why I stopped picking red and blue. I don't like this division of red and blue, L and D, R and stuff. That started getting me. No. There's truth and there's not truth. Now, I understand there's a gray in the sense of things to make politically, beneficial. But the bottom line is the Constitution is 8 pages. The federal government has 33 functions. The state is superior to the federal government except for those 33 functions.
And we are going to get back there.
Yeah. So my red pill came from that first thing going.
Okay.
Then healthcare wise, it's going to be, I may be a little, bother people here, but seeing these mommies who get pregnant again, bringing their first kids and mainly boys, and my children playing sports and watching little boys run on their toes and not look in your eyes. Autism.
Interesting.
Wow. When you and I were kids, there were papers 1 in 10,000. And then in our training, it got down less and less and less. Now it's 1 in 28. And you and I had 3 or 4 vaccines as a kid. And now it's 79 vaccines in the first 2 years of life. So what's in that vaccine? And heavy metals are real. And I started everything here Robert Kane talking about now, I was there 20 years ago.
So the kids that you were looking at in this whole autism thing.
Yep.
And this was in what year?
This is because they changed the schedule in 88. So this is around 88 to when I was out of school. So this is early 90s. Early 90s. I'm in private practice now, watching my first wave of children I delivered and watching those children playing sports with my children and watching that occur. and you could just see. So that's why I started seeing something differently. And I don't want to hear because we're better physicians. We're better at diagnosing this. That's bullcrap. And then what I did was I started reading reading what every ingredient was inside these things. And I kept it in the back of my head.
But did you hear anybody, like nowadays with social media?
No.
At
that time it was just me asking.
You saw
questions.
that and you go, yeah.
So that was about 10-year experience there, just 10 years. So we backed off of giving vaccines. We started watching. And I had friends of mine that would give no vaccines, like, nah, they can't be right. There's got to be something to it. Then I started studying papers, like how many in med school, what mechanism of action do they teach on how vaccines work? No, they take what they know from natural immunity and apply it to that. And I was like, whoa. Now, about 10 years down the line, Jody's getting into it. My wife's getting into that. We're adopting our babies from China.
China, right.
And she goes, why would we give them some of this stuff in China? I mean, more vaccines, but they already had it. Why are we giving more? And that got me even asking more questions. And then I went balls to the wall. I got 20 of the most normal vaccines in America, and I got every ingredient in them. And 19 of them are made in aborted baby cells. So that got me going, okay, even if they were perfect for us, would you use an aborted baby for any benefit? No. And then, so that opened my eyes. And when you start reading like examples, like the example, the EPA says do not give an adult male more than 25 micrograms of aluminum in a year exposure. A brand new baby gets 125 micrograms in an hepatitis B shot? No. And the Gardasil shot, poison. So more and more and more. They should look at the money. It all happened because the DTaP vaccine in 1980s, before 86, was killing a lot of pregnant mommies and a lot of babies. And the makers of that they wanted some indemnity from the government. So they went to Reagan and Newt Gingrich and said, guys, you got to give some indemnity or we're going to stop making the smallpox vaccine. And that put pressure on them, thinking that was important, but it isn't, by the way. There's more. Dr. Jenner is a fraud, but that's another story. So I started reading everything, Michael. I started reading everything I possibly could. And what's the mechanism of that? You don't think, forget being a believer. If we had no immune system, we couldn't be here for these years, 6,000 years. You know what I mean? And then the more you study, the more you think that man's way is better than God's way. So that's it. I'm not saying if a broken bone's sticking out. I was a surgeon, right? If something's bleeding, he gives me skill set. But the actual system our body makes.
Like you said to me, you said, if you get hit by a car, modern medicine is great.
Yeah, I need a liver, I need a heart, God bless, bones sticking. I mean, I'm not anti-allopathic, but it is more of a
allopathic is general
medicine. And I get really nerdy, but I told you about this. 1909, the Flex Report. America.
So I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Where did the modern medical industrial complex come from? Because it's not always been this way.
Yeah, Rockefeller. So what happened was, and this got me going too, like you said, I started saying, where are these rules coming from? First off is constitutionally in Article 1, Section 8, there's no health care. Why is that even a federal government issue? In the state constitutions, it's not in there either. Why are we taking the thing we've had, healthcare, we'll say, or just our nutrition, our body? Why that become under the umbrella of a government? It's like Bosnia in 1850 wrote a great little essay called "The Law." It was basically a response to Karl Marx's manifesto from 1848, and he talks about America's the best example of a great government, except slavery. Maybe it's run down, but at the end of the book, he says that when the chapter, he calls them witchcraft and doctors. He goes, we're not against government-run healthcare. We're not this is 1850. We're not against government school. We're not against government. We're not against healthcare. We're not against school. He lists all these things. We're against government control of these things. And he says, what we got to do is go back where we should. He goes, let's put those on the trash heap of history, never to go back again, and go back where we never should have left. What is that? A belief in God and his works.
We'll link to that book below.
That to me just blew my mind, Michael, on that we always bend down. During our revolutionary era, the generation before the revolution, there was a pamphleteers called Cato. There are two guys, I think Gordon Trench and some other guy. They wrote under Cato. And one thing they read that blew my mind: living at the behest of another is slavery. So if you ever have to ask anybody permission, the only knee we should bow to is Jesus. If we ask any other permission, we're giving away our responsibility, because liberty demands responsibility. So that this whole thing tied together, Michael. So I started questioning everything. Like,
Everything.
why would I do this procedure, that procedure? What's best for this? Because when I was an OB, I had a very easy thing. Would I do that to Jody? If I wouldn't do that to Jody, I'm not going to do that to Mary. And so my healthcare, that journey came to, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But Michael, it was basically the prism of being lied to. And I don't want to blame anybody. I got to blame the man in the mirror. And that's why I took responsibility.
You told me about who I'd never heard of. I've heard of Louis Pasteur, but also Beauchamp.
Yeah, D. Beauchamp.
And I read, because you encouraged me to, the book, and kind of learned about that and the germ theory versus the terrain theory.
Yep.
And could you explain a little bit of that?
So D. Beauchamp is like the most
especially
famous,
for where we are today.
Yeah, this is about 1860s, 1880s. I mean, he's like the most famous organic chemist in the world.
Beauchamp.
And like, there's no Pasteur's not that famous, but they were debating. And his whole idea was there's these, they didn't call them viruses, but these things that bothered us, these germs, whatever. There's out there everywhere. They're always over us.
Right.
But why does Mike get it and Greg doesn't get it? That was his idea. It's your terrain. How healthy is your immune system? How healthy is that body? And Pasteur said, no. It's these things. This, whatever these pyrons or whatever these are, that's the cause.
Right.
And D. Beauchamp actually won the day scientifically back then. But the first vaccine maker was Pasteur, right? And you would know about milk, and he ruins milk by cooking it. You cook milk, you ruin it. So, but he
raw milk, baby.
Raw milk. And that's the same time, don't forget, the Rockefellers ran education. The Rockefellers were looking to get everything they could. And so in 1909, Abraham Flexner hired his unemployed brother to go around to all medical schools, all different types. And those that would take their money would become AMA approved, become the experts.
That's how the AMA became.
That's how it came together. Yeah. And that's the problem. I have a great book in my study here from 1923, How the Rockefellers Ruined Medicine. There's another great book, Michael, called The 100-Year Lie about the FDA. Like in 1903, there was like 0.1% diabetics, 1% cancers. It's just, now we're now the last 4 or 5 years, we're the only Western civilized country with a life expectancy dying. We have the sickest kids in the world. And so I'm going to jump in hard, but Michael, that's why it's important to question everything. I tell my patients, question what I say. I'll tell you what I believe. I'll give you books and reads to go, but you got to do the work. And I think a lot of people don't want that responsibility, Michael.
It's so interesting because it took me the whole terrain theory thing a while, because so in March of 20, COVID, you start helping me listening and reading things. And then May of 21 was when, I won't explain it, but my sister got me into something, and that really started the journey. And this idea of the body being the thing, and that's what heals us.
Yes.
It's such a paradigm shift.
Yes.
Because for all of my life, for 60 years, it was, it's the medicine outside of us that comes into me that heals me. The medicine doesn't heal you. It allows your body to heal itself.
Well, there's not one single medicine that's cured a disease ever. None. Okay.
Do you tell that to people? They're like,
I know, crazy. Now, antibiotics are the exception. There are antibiotics that do different things, but they attack differently. They attack cell walls of bacteria. They attack cell walls of fungi. They do different things that allows your immune system to do its work. Right. That's why this whole COVID vaccine we'll get later on, the spike proteins. The spike proteins block the bacteria that our immune system cannot recognize it now to do its thing. So that's the problem with that, is that the spike protein has multiple other problems, blood clots, things like that. But one of its things with the immune system, we're seeing all these turbo cancers, is because it blocks the foreign body that your immune system wants to see it. I mean, this is from Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone. This is not like, these are the thing. I'll put a little sad note here. Dr. McCullough at the time was the most published scientist in American history. His specialty is cardioepidemiology, chairman at Baylor. And he says, hey, we should slow down a little bit. Baylor fired him and he took his license. Dr. Malone, Robert Malone, invented the messenger RNA technology, owns the first 10 patents. He goes on to, I know him personally, he goes on to Rogan, December 31st of 2021, and says, I invented it, here it is. I actually got the first 2 vaccines, but no, here's why we should not do it. He got blackmailed, right?
Right.
It blacklisted. It's like, whoa, I thought the idea of America or liberty is to have a difference of opinions, ask questions. And these are the two most like Fauci has never seen patients. He's never clinical. You know what I mean? It's like, and again, it doesn't really matter because they're not kings or queens to us anyway. We should take the knowledge in. But when you want to ask for a different opinion, as you said before, I think COVID is the greatest eye-opening experience, as you called the red pill experience.
Red pill truth bomb.
Truth bomb. I love it. That's exactly what happened.
Because I mean, it's just now you trust nothing they say, right? I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts.
But again, Christ tells us, check me out. The Bible says, check me out. And that's what I tell people, like if Christ came in right now in this presence, I know he's there, but physically came to you and me and says, you must join me. He would never say that. He would say, look what I did. You want to join me. Right. But what the government tells us we must do something.
The Bereans, right?
Yes, it's Michael. It's like when you read, I heard you on one podcast last week talk about Hegel. Hegel's whole goal with this idea of thesis antithesis was to do one thing. We look at his original premise. It was to move, we'll say, from one side to the other side. So you keep shifting away. But the shift was not the goal. The goal is to replace God with the government. That's the goal. The goal was not move from, something that's standard to not being standard. That's the process.
Right. The government was it.
But the goal was to eliminate God. And you look at Dewey, you look at Woodrow Wilson, our whole goal with public school is this what Dewey said, was to eliminate Jimmy and Janie's father and replace with the government. We have to understand what humanists believe the answer is. Answer is government. Mm-hmm. Now, we know from Romans 13 that government is a tool God uses for good, not for bad. And if actually the sword, it talks about the government, when you look at the original Greek, it actually is the head of the household, not the government. And that word government came in after Geneva Bible, actually the King James Bible. And we have to ask these questions because the government cannot be in charge of everything outside Scripture. That's why when MacArthur wrote the great thing, he wrote, Christ not Caesar, when he was told what to do with his church, that was anti-plan. So I'm getting a little off track here, but the thing is, the red pill could be, you pick the topic, I'll give you the red pill. It doesn't matter what it is, because who is the chief prince of this world? Satan. So he wants to take us away from Creator, God, Jesus Christ. Right. That's all this battle is. It's really that simple. It's not left or right. It's not red or blue. It's, are you with Jesus or are you without Jesus? If you think you're in the middle, go, well, I'm an agnostic, or it doesn't matter, I'm not playing. Well, you've chosen.
Correct. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
You've made the choice. right.
And it's so interesting because the second chapter of my book is, I keep hitting that. The second chapter of my book is the truth is the dividing line in Western culture. And the reason I believe that is because I believe there are metaphysical implications to truth, meaning that truth points beyond itself to he who is the truth. And so just like Musk and Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, and they're liberals, but they believe in truth. So what God has done through Trump is push these people away from the left to say, and they're closer to Jesus because of it.
That's exactly correct. And that's the thing about it is, tomorrow, Vice President Harris becomes a believer, the world changes. Tomorrow, look at this. Nebuchadnezzar skinned people alive, killed families in front of fathers, poked eyes out, made jars to drink out of skulls, and he wrote chapter 4 of Daniel. And most likely, he'll be in heaven with you and me. Okay? So this is the thing we have to understand. Nobody before they pass away is too far from Jesus. Nobody. But at the same time, I don't want a theocracy. I don't want you must be Baptist or you must be this, you be that. And I'm going to cite a little side note here. This is what blows me away with the separation of church and state. When those go, we need the separation of church. I said, sure. Show me where that's in the Constitution. Show it to me. Well, it's got to be. It's in, yes, it is. 1947 Soviet Union's Constitution. It's not on ours. It's nowhere there. In fact, what happened was the Baptist Convention of Connecticut was concerned the federal government, like 11 of the original 13 states, had a religious clause that you had to run for office.
Correct.
And they wrote a letter to President Thomas Jefferson. He wrote, no, The wall is high, and there's a separate church state on the federal government
right.
side.
The government can't do anything
Not the other way
to
around.
infringe. Exactly.
So you could be an atheist, a Buddhist, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
But we know our Christian, I wrote a paper years ago called the Judeo-Christian Belief of our Ethics. There's no doubt, you look back at the founders, they quoted Montesquieu, they quoted Plato, I got it. But over 80% of their quotes were from scripture.
Exactly. Deuteronomy, their favorite.
Exactly. The three parts of federal government are all based upon Isaiah. I mean, so we have to read their writing. But the bottom line is this: even if they use something else, we go back to the Bible. But this was just so important: is we as believers should never be afraid to get in the public square ever. If you did, you failed. Okay,
Exactly.
we failed because we know the answer is not. We know politics. We know the answer is only Christ. I got it. And you may be called to get involved in politics. It's not the only answer, but if you get involved, you want to make sure that as a believer, it'd be nice to have a good believer who's making ethical decisions in the sense of that.
And wise.
So, well, wise. That's why it's important. Who are they relying to? Are they listening to Alinsky, where you look at the rules for radicals, 13 rules, which Hillary Clinton and Obama said that's our guidebook, is dedicated to the first radical, Lucifer? Let's that's their own words. But people are afraid to attack this. And you talk about Musk, and you talk about Tulsi, these people, Trump. Yeah, I want them all to know Jesus. Because if they're pursuing liberty and truth, they're going to find him. Because, Michael, second, libertarianism, not party-wise, liberty goes with Christianity. 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, the Spirit is Lord, and where the Spirit is true liberty.
And that's the only basis of true political and personal liberty.
Exactly.
Christianity.
Exactly. So if anything we say goes, in fact, in 2012 or 13, they passed some judge in North Carolina says you could open any government meeting with prayer to anybody you want other than Jesus Christ. And people take that. No more.
No more.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. So your red pill experience obviously continued, and I'm very, well, for me, it's the kind of time release red pill that never stops.
That never stops.
But there's another red pill experience you had with bioidentical hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that story. I don't know all of it, but how you just thought it was a scam initially.
Scam.
And then now you run a bioidentical hormone replacement business, which I want you to talk about. But how did that journey happen? Why were you not open to it originally?
If it's not FDA approved, if it's not this, not that, and you look, okay, so this is more data, but the number 3 cause of death in America is FDA approved medication. Okay, it's okay. 450,000 people a year we document. They probably recommend less than 1% of all side effects being registered. So it may, all this stuff. So my personal health journey happened in this process. I always joke that, Jody had our first 4 babies. She got a big pregnant belly. So did I. And I kept mine. She got rid of hers. Right. And this is around 2009, 10, the same thing with bioidentical hormone pellets is, I was diabetic. And I'm like, okay, at that time of my life, I'm doing triathlons.
I know.
And I'm doing CrossFit. But I'm eating the way the government tells us. 6 meals a day, 12 grains a day, 3 snacks a day, all that stuff. And about how God's
oatmeal, you said you were big on oatmeal.
I had oatmeal every morning for 17 years, okay? And the ironic was I was a OB diabetes specialist. God's humor is great. and I read a book. I know the date exactly. It was April 30th, 2011. I just finished my last doctor's appointment. His office was on the 2nd floor. I was on the 3rd floor, and I came back to the office, and my receptionist said, "Dr. Brannon, have you where you're back?" I told her. She said, "Have you ever read a book by Mark Sisson called Primal Blueprint?" I go, "Don't know who he is. That's crap. Because I'm a doctor, you need carbohydrates." That's exactly what I told her. I walk back to my desk. I walk back and I say, "Melanie, I'm sorry. I'm a jerk. What is this book?" She told me it's called Primal Blueprint.
Wow.
Mark Sisson. I went to Barnes and Noble's that moment.
But so why did you turn and say that?
Because I knew everything. I'm an expert.
No. I know that you said that, but why did you come back in your mind open to wanting to learn what this was?
I don't know. I sat down in a chair and I said, I'm an idiot. And I walked back. And God's
the answer.
But I was rude. And I go, Mel, I'm sorry. Because I was just told by my doctor, you're screwed. You got diabetes. You're done, right? And I was an idiot, bottom line. So I went about the book and I did exactly what it said.
I remember you telling me about it after that too.
So that's May 1st, 2011.
Okay.
On July 4th, I was 145 pounds.
Wow.
Boom. But that's the process I was studying about bioidentical hormones too. And I was on a radio show and the guy was sitting in a chair doing this. This is July of that year. He's doing this. And actually July the year before. And I go, what's on? He goes, I got these thing called pellets and they're in my back. I go, what are pellets? He goes, they're testosterone. I go, they're going to kill you. They cause cancer. He goes, are you sure? I said, sure. I'm a doctor. And he challenged me. So I studied that for about 2.5. Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's so funny.
I studied that for about 2.5 years. And that all came together March of 12. I found the world expert on pellets. And I went and talked to him. And he goes, why
did you not have a paper on your table, you said, on your desk, and you ignored it?
I got a paper from a friend of mine that sat on my desk for 2 years before I looked at it.
Because you're a doctor.
Well, my first book I wrote, Michael, the first book I wrote, in the introduction, I talked about this. I said, my arrogance led to my ignorance, right? It's like, because I was
That's perfect.
It goes back to Jason Fung's book on diabetes called Diabetes Code.
Right.
And his first sentence in his book says, why would you take advice from a fat doctor? So bottom line, so I've read pill experiences, Michael, everything. So that during that process, I started doing hormones in myself because I started finding, if I asked any doctor, any gynecologist.
First, can you explain what bioidentical hormones are?
Bioidentical by the Mayo Clinic, the Bio Clinic calls it body recognized as same. So I'll give an example. Years ago about diabetes, we learned that diabetes is where your body's not making insulin. So the original insulin we gave was made out of either pork or beef. It wasn't as good as humans, but it was close enough to help us, right? Bioidentical. Then with great knowledge, they got bacteria, took our genes and put it inside the gene and made the bacteria make human insulin. Great change of history, changed everything. Right? Now, the problem is diabetes is because the American diet by the government killed us, but diabetes in general. We're talking type 2 diabetes, not type 1.
The stuff
type
you get.
The type 1 means you don't make it. Type 2, you makes too much. It's not sensitive enough. So that's sort of what in my last book I put a little. I compare it to that. But Michael, it's like so my journey was so bioidentical means that. But if I ask any gynecologist, what is the most abundant? Does a woman make more estrogen or testosterone? A woman, of course, they're going to say estrogen.
Right.
A woman makes 50 times more testosterone. If I ask any mainstream doctor, what's the most abundant active hormone in the human body? They might say DHEA, they may say insulin, they may say cortisol. They sure don't say testosterone. It's testosterone. Then once you realize, okay, it's testosterone, great, who cares? What's it do? Every cell in your body needs to turn on. Every cell, your brain, your heart, your breast, your doesn't matter. It's not just sex and muscle. It's, in fact, an optimized testosterone lowers hemoglobin A1C, the diabetes marker, 17.3% in 6 months.
Wow.
Optimized testosterone decreases diabetes by, there's a great study in Germany. They had 10,000 men with diabetes. They gave them testosterone for 6 months, 34% complete remission.
Wow.
They go back they go back to testosterone, they got it back. Okay, so I'll get biochemistry, I'll do that, make it nerdy, but the bottom line is we need it. So, okay, what's a good number? 50 years ago, a range for a man, what they do when I mean range, they take 10,000 people to study, they get a median, a standard deviation, so a bell curve. 80% fall within that bell curve. That bell curve for a man 50 years ago was 900 to 1,400. Now it's 170 to 700. A woman was 90 to 300. Today, a woman is 3 to 50. Blow your mind here. Today's man is yesterday's woman. So the question is, why is that occurring? Not that those are the facts, which is great. But now what do we do about it? In our bodies, in human bodies, both men and women, testosterone from the womb, testosterone becomes estrogen. Then estrogen goes back to the brain and turns off the production of testosterone. It's a great negative feedback. Again, points to creator, right? This ain't by random accident.
Yeah, right.
The problem is we've had over 80,000 new chemicals put on the market since World War II.
Wow.
Biggest thing is called the endocrine disrupting chemicals. They look like estrogens or act like estrogens. So what they do is it blocks testosterone and looks like estrogen. We can become hyperestrogenic. That's why sperm count has decreased 1% per year since 1970, 2% per year since 2002. So what's happened, we become hyperestrogenic, which makes us low testosterone. We get belly fat, this, obesity, diabetes. The big one in women is dementia, Alzheimer's. These are things caused by having suboptimal numbers.
Not to mention eating the regular processed
what is the American, what's an acronym for that? Standard American Diet, SAD, right? SAD. A couple of years ago, Rockefeller University Institute, pushed by the government, set out what's healthy food. Number one was kale. Number two is Fruit Loops. Eggs and meat were worst at the best. It's reverse, right?
No kidding.
It's reverse. My joke in healthcare is the government says do it, do something else.
Exactly. So you started doing bioidentical hormone replacements. You're still delivering babies.
Well, at that time, so this is March of 12. I started doing women in my practice in evenings as a side thing to get them going. By April, I had a husband saying, "What are you doing? I need this." And I walked, and I didn't want to see men in my OB practice, so I rented space next door.
Okay.
And now we have 10 offices from Texas to the East Coast.
And what are the offices?
We have 9 offices. We've done about 150,000 patients.
What is the company called?
Optimal Bio.
Okay.
We'll
link to all this.
Yeah, we have a podcast. I have YouTube. We get about, I don't know, about 8-9 million impressions a month on our social media.
Beautiful.
We're very fortunate. We've had Dr. Malone on our podcast. We've had Dr. Sean Baker from Carnivore Diet. We've had Dr. Brownstein, who's brilliant out of Michigan.
Yeah.
What we try to do is if you use one word for Optimal Bio, it's basically a red pill thing. It's education, period. I'm a freak on liberty. I don't want people to be free.
Yeah. And knowledge is how
what I do, Michael, is very interesting. I charge my patients $250 for a consult, and that consult is good for their whole life. We never charge a penny again, ever, for a consult. Because our goal is not to sell pellets. Our goal is to empower you, a true informed consent. And we have a 98% retention rate. Nobody's forced us to see us. So, because we have results. And again, it goes back to it's the biblical review I have. Right. I don't know what Moses' testosterone was, but I guarantee it wasn't 170. I know when Caleb and Joshua said, Caleb goes,
we can do it, right?
Yeah, I'm going where the giants are. I guarantee he wasn't 170. I guarantee he wasn't 170. And so that's my problem, is because it goes back to my now you know me my whole life. I've been a black and white guy. Even when I was wrong, I was right. That was me. I could argue everything I'm saying now. 25 years ago, I'd have been the other guy.
Wow.
Okay. But it's like it comes down this simple: God or Satan. It's just that simple. And the sad part is
black and white, baby.
This is why Genesis matters, Mike. Adam and Eve gave up the deed to this earth, and Christ gets it back. And God, as you know, he's sitting on the throne right now.
Exactly.
So the battle that we fire flush is the battle. The eternal battle is done. It's done.
Right.
Paid for, done, gone. But we as humans who are going, multiply, prosper, you're the stewards. We're not equal
on
to
this earth now. And that's what's so great about this, because this awakening is happening in health.
Right. A dog is not like, I'm not saying it's good to do, but you kill a baby seal, the world goes crazy.
Right.
You take a baby out of the womb, it's okay. It's a choice.
It's healthcare.
Yeah, that's Moloch. That's what that is. We know that.
Oh, yeah.
And so our job for those who are blind, who don't see that's life, we got to go with them love and compassion, because we were blind. We know what that is. We know that's taking a life. We know it. But when they don't know what it is, that's why little young women who have abortions, I don't really attack them. They've been lied to. They've evolved. It's their choice. There's no God. And they feel scared and they don't know what to do. It makes complete sense to me. Our job is, as believers, is to say, yeah, I've been there for other things. Sometimes it's easier for us to point to things we don't do. And that's why I don't do that sin. But I love Christ. You have a little sawdust that means nothing, but we have a log in our eye and we'll say it's okay, right? So we got to make sure with compassion not walk away. That's life. Not walk away from what truth is, but compassion. We show them heartbeats at 12 weeks. We show them fingers and toes. We show them stuff that will change everything over time.
Yes.
So that's why I think you and we're very fortunate, because if people knew our childhood, it's amazing we're here. It goes back to God's mercy too. But you and I should not be doing this. Let's put it that way. And but that's what's so beautiful about him. You know, we all are prodigal sons, and that's why. And for people who forget from prodigal sons, the son was not running to the father. The father is running to the son.
Right to the son. As David says in Psalm 16, the boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places.
Well, you could quote all day live. So I love when I read your stuff every day. So yes, I love when you read everything in the Bible. You quote it beautifully. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So I know on your podcast, you leave people with certain things. And so for the listeners, viewers, related to health,
okay, what
would you leave three, whatever things?
Before Michael, we missed one thing, the coronavirus. We missed the whole thing there. Huh. Our red pill experience with corona. We missed that. We didn't talk about that, you and I.
No.
Okay. Do you want to?
Sure.
Well, we'll move the corona was in September of 19.
Right.
Bill Gates had a thing called Events 2001.
Right. You told me about that.
Where they did a show. It used to be online. If you watch it, you think it was real newscasters doing real things. It was what would happen if a coronavirus, that's the cold, had a pandemic around the world. And August of that year, a guy named Kerry Mullis died, which was very fortunate for this corona stuff. Because who's Kerry Mullis? Oh, he only won the Nobel Prize for the PCR test. Okay, one of the most famous biochemists the world's ever seen.
Right.
And the PCR test can never be used for an infection. This ain't Greg Brannon. This is Kerry Mullis. Coronavirus is a RNA virus. We have double strands of DNA.
Right.
RNA is a single strand. And you talk about terrain. There's a great movie called Terrain by Dr. Kaufman out of Duke, who talks about this real good too. But the bottom line is, I saw these pieces coming together, and seeing them with this, and they were scaring people. What if something happened in China? They're trying to scare people. So I had on my podcast in November when I first came out, I said, okay, I don't care what this corona thing is. Take quercetin, C, D, do the things that make your body stronger. And then the amount of effort to be lied to, because here's the big lie, you're going to die. Okay, I'm going to give you a patient with risk factors. An overweight Italian, 80 years of age, with diabetes who smoked. What was his chance of surviving? 3%. No, it was the other way around. 97%.
So let's shut down the world.
They're scaring the world for a disease that, and if you're under 21, the chance of dying, now I'm gonna go why that's all fake too, was being struck by lightning 3 times, right? Because the test they use to say you had it can't be used for it, but they were using a test. Dr. Mullis said is, what they do is they take a piece of DNA and amplify it. At 17 applications, I mean, you keep increasing it logarithmically. He said you can make anything positive after 17. And Fauci made it 45 for the government to be positive. Okay, now here's the ass kicker. Corona's RNA. They had to make that into a double-stranded and then test it. So this is scientific stuff, like doctors wearing masks. Dr. Russell Blaylock, one of the most famous neurosurgeons in the world at the time, March of that year, says, you never put a mask on a healthy person. This room is 20% oxygen. You put a mask on, it's 19 within 30 seconds. By 16, you're losing brain cells. But Greg, you're a surgeon, a mask on. Yep. In the OR, they put the oxygen up to 23%. See, this is the bother me about the doctors. The doctors know this stuff.
And they went along with it.
They went along with it.
Money?
So that to me, Michael, that's why it's really, really important. We talk about Proverbs 1, get wise counsel. I'm not saying no go to doctors. I'm not saying that. I'm saying ask questions all the time. Because the body responsibility, it's you are responsible.
Ours.
Yes.
That was what I learned from you. It's like, oh, so my health is my own responsibility.
Right. So
Instead of something happens, you run to the doctor.
right.
You run to
So
the
Michael,
doctor.
so there's a my last book, I'm very honored, is a medallion,
Yes,
gold
tell us
medallion
about
dust
that.
center. It's called Restore.
Restore. We'll link to that as well.
I take a woman from the womb and a man from the womb through the whole journey of life where hormones work. But and the last of the book is all medical liberty. But the big thing you asked, the takeaways. Dr. Attia wrote a great book called Outlive. He has 4 things you do to stay healthy. I added a 5th, but the 4 are sleep. Nothing more important to sleep.
Right.
Put the computer away. Put the phone away. Get rid of blue light. Very important. Eat and understand what eating is. Women are more difficult than men. So don't, it's not just simply diet, but eating fat, eating protein, the right complex carbohydrates. Find out what's for you. Is it intermittent fasting? There's things to do. Third thing, exercise. Lift heavy things twice a week and walk. And a heavy thing could be a push-up. A heavy thing could be a squat. Just lift heavy things.
Well, I want to tell them something.
Okay.
I want to tell them this. So I had a shoulder injury and I wouldn't wear a mask in the past. And this is God's providence through all this. So this was like 21 and I would not go to a doctor because I'm not going to wear a mask, period. So I think, well, maybe my body could heal itself. So I get a book on shoulder exercises. I start doing that and lo and behold, it starts getting better. So it literally got perfect. So I said, I think I'm going to try push-ups because I'd given up on that. So this is great. The first day I did push-ups, I did 2. And I texted Greg and I said, I'm afraid to ask, how many push-ups could you do? And he goes, 50 to 60. And he was nothing but encouraging that you can do it. You just keep doing. Then it was 5, then it was 10, then it was and now I'm doing a couple sets of 50, which I still can't believe. I actually could do more.
Michael, I love it. I love it because number 4 cause of death over 65 is falling down.
I know you told me that.
So let's just keep. So that's number 3.
Okay.
Number 4 is remove stress, and that's why I think prayer, God, Christ,
Yeah.
And then number 5 is restore your hormones because you can't do the first 3 without those hormones.
I have a question. So and I learned this from you along the way somewhere that the insulin levels are optimal at certain whatever, no matter how many years ago or now or whatever. Why is that not the same with testosterone? Why isn't the optimal level what it was?
Because of the plastics, the phthalates, the plastics.
But why do they say that they're lower? That's what I'm saying.
I see. That's what I think. I have no clue, and that's what I use in my example in my book, Michael. If you were going to go, what's an optimal blood sugar or an optimal fasting insulin? You check 1 billion people, and you get a standard deviation of curve. You go, I have all my right data, but I put a caveat. By the way, the 1 billion people that you just tested are all diabetic. Garbage. That you say the data doesn't matter.
Right.
But when all of us are exposed to phthalates and atrazine and organic phosphates, nobody stops to ask the question. You know why? Because they're just everywhere. And so it's like, oh my gosh, it does. See, that's the problem. We don't want to put, what we should friggin' do. This is important, Michael. Walk, eat like we did 100 years ago. That's it.
Right.
Have the cows eat the grass. We eat the cows. The chickens eat grubs on the ground.
Right.
We eat the eggs.
Right.
It's like cholesterol. Oh, it's poison. No, without cholesterol, you die.
Exactly.
Your brain is 75% cholesterol. Your body makes 2,000 to 4,000 grams every single day. And but there's a pill that can lower it. We can make money. No, we have to ask questions. Cholesterol that's oxidized by sugar or seed oils that are oxidizing, that causes the issue. Let's stop doing on the periphery and let's get to the root cause.
Yes.
And so I did become board certified in functional medicine with 2 fellowships. And I took in medical school, how many classes of nutrition I took? 0, is afterwards I learned this stuff. Plato may have been an atheist, but he's right on one thing: food is medicine.
Yeah. I remember hearing that the first time on your podcast, and I go, and it's still for me, even though, grandma and little grandma and all that, eat, this is good for you. You got to eat your whatever. So we know that, but we're so programmed by
grandma ate cod liver oil every day of her life. That's omega-3 fatty acids. She had not a wrinkle in her face ever.
I know.
And she smoked for 60 years.
I know. The story of our family. We could tell you that sometime.
Oh my God, that'd be I think if anybody knew that, they wouldn't listen to us.
Well, brother, thank you so much for my very first. This is going to be up there with Rogan in terms of.
Okay, well, I hope, Michael, I don't ruin your career before it becomes a Rogan. So I hope this helps you.
Oh man, it will. I'm so grateful, and thank you for your life and your service and what you're doing and just helping so many people to God's glory and their good.
Michael, I can't say better. Thank you very much for that. It's truly exactly what it's about.
Okay, brother.
Thank you.
Talk to you again soon.
Seated here at my right hand.